My boss made me work 70 hours, so I got him reported. I used to think hard work paid off until it nearly killed me. I've always been that guy who believed effort solves everything. Work hard, stay late, say yes to every request, and eventually someone notices, right? That's what I thought when I landed my job at Merrick Advertising, a mid-sized marketing firm that boasted about its family culture. Turns out that family had one father and he was a tyrant. His name was Mr. Carter, marketing director, charismatic when needed, ruthless when not. The kind of guy who could sell a fridge to a polar bear and then make you carry it there yourself. I joined his team right out of college. I was young, ambitious, and a little naive. When Carter interviewed me, he leaned back in his leather chair, crossed his arms, and said, "Ethan, we don't do 9 to 5 here. We do whatever it takes." I laughed nervously, thinking it was just a motivational line. If only I knew how literal he meant it. My first few months were, okay, exciting even. I was learning, contributing ideas, and getting praise. But slowly, my occasional late nights became the norm. 7 a.m. check-ins, midnight sign-offs, sometimes longer. Carter had this way of making overwork sound like loyalty. "Champions don't clock out," he'd say with that fake grin, walking around the office while everyone pretended to look busy. If you left before 8 p.m., he'd make sure to comment the next morning, "Half day yesterday, huh?" The pressure was unreal. Everyone knew that if Carter didn't like you, you were done. I watched a guy named Leo get fired because he missed a single client call because his mom was in the hospital. Carter didn't even look up from his phone when he told him, "This isn't a charity, Leo. Pack your things." That's when I realized no one was safe. My days became mechanical. Wake up at 6, rush through breakfast, spill coffee on myself, curse, and join the 7 a.m. meeting half asleep. Then sit through endless calls, strategy meetings, and brainstorming sessions that were really just Carter talking over everyone. Lunch, usually eaten cold, hours later. Dinner, office pizza or vending machine junk. Sleep, optional. Sometimes when I got home past midnight, I'd just sit in the dark and stare at my phone, wondering when I'd turn into this person, exhausted, irritable, always behind on life. I missed my cousin's wedding because of a last-minute campaign change. My mom stopped calling as often because I never answered. Even my girlfriend Nina got tired of hearing, "Sorry, I'm stuck at work again." Eventually, she stopped waiting up. I remember one night, vividly. It was 11:45 p.m. Carter was still walking around the office, double-checking everyone's work. He stopped at my desk, scanned my screen, and said, "Still not finalized? Come on, Ethan, you're better than this." I'd been working 14 hours straight that day. My eyes burned. My brain felt like static, but I forced a smile. "Almost there, sir." He nodded, tapped my shoulder, and said, "Good. Remember, we don't stop until the client's impressed." Then he walked away to make sure someone else was still suffering too. You'd think people would revolt, right? No. Carter had perfected fear management. Every month, he fired someone, always with a performance review excuse. Didn't matter if they were good. It was a ritual, his way of reminding us we were replaceable. When Anita, our senior designer, once spoke up about the unrealistic deadlines, Carter cut her off mid-sentence. "If you can't keep up, there are hundreds who can." She lasted another 2 weeks before quitting. Her workload got dumped on me, and I said nothing. That's the thing about toxic workplaces. Silence becomes survival. You don't complain, you don't question, you just keep your head down and pray you're invisible. It was early spring when I finally cracked. We just finished a massive campaign for a luxury brand. I hadn't slept properly in days. My eyes had dark circles so deep, they looked like bruises. My back ached from sitting so long, but the campaign went live successfully and everyone was relieved. I thought maybe now I could rest. So I walked into Carter's office, still half smiling, and said politely, "Hey, sir, the campaign's done and approved. I was wondering if I could take this weekend off. Just Saturday and Sunday. Haven't had a break in a while." He didn't even look from his screen. "You want time off? Earn it." I thought I misheard. "Sir?" Now he looked up and everyone else in the room went silent. "Well, you heard me, Ethan. You think one campaign means you get a holiday? We're already behind on the next one." I could feel people staring, uncomfortable. Carter enjoyed that. He loved public humiliation. It was his form of control. "You want to know who gets weekends off?" he said, leaning forward. "The unemployed." Everyone laughed nervously. I stood there, frozen, swallowing my pride like poison. Then I muttered, "Yes, sir," and went back to my desk. Inside, something started to crack. That weekend, I worked. Again. I was editing ad copy at 1 a.m. on a Sunday, running on caffeine and resentment. My hands were trembling every time my phone pinged with another Carter email. I felt this mix of rage and exhaustion, but I still replied instantly. The man had me trained. By Monday, my body was in rebellion. I couldn't focus. My eyes blurred when I stared at the screen too long. I forgot to eat lunch. I was so dizzy, I started making typos in client drafts. Carter called me into his office again. "Ethan, what's going on with you lately? You used to be sharp." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him what was going on, but I just said, "Sorry, sir, I'll do better." He smiled that smug, soulless smile and said, "Good. I like that attitude. Keep pushing." That night, I collapsed. Literally. It was close to midnight. Everyone else had gone home except me and the cleaning staff. My desk was covered in papers, empty coffee cups, and a half-eaten sandwich from hours ago. I was trying to finish a presentation when suddenly my vision tunneled. My fingers went numb. I remember trying to stand, but my legs didn't respond. I woke up on the office floor to the sound of my phone buzzing. Carter had texted, "Need that deck ready by morning." That's when I realized, even after collapsing at work, the only thing my boss cared about was the presentation. I sat there, dizzy, disoriented, half laughing and half crying. I was so exhausted I couldn't even be angry. Just numb. I looked around that empty office, the flickering lights, the hum of the AC, the glow of my monitor, and thought, what am I doing? This wasn't hard work anymore. This was self-destruction with a company logo on it. And yet I went back to my desk, opened my laptop, and started typing again. Because I was afraid. Afraid of being next. Afraid of losing everything I'd worked for. When Carter came in the next morning, he saw me at my desk, still in yesterday's clothes, eyes bloodshot. He smirked and said, "Now that's commitment. You can rest when the campaign's done." That line burned into my brain like a brand. You can rest when the campaign's done. At that moment, I finally understood. To Carter, we weren't employees. We were fuel. And when fuel burns out, you just replace it. After that night, something changed in me. I stopped seeing Carter as a boss. I saw him as what? He was a bully in a suit, feeding on fear. The next morning, I went through my routine. Same coffee, same commute, same fake smile, but I was watching now. Watching how he spoke to people, how everyone laughed too loudly at his jokes, how he made motivation speeches that sounded like threats. And I decided I wasn't going to be his fuel forever. But I didn't act right away. I was too tired, too beaten down. Instead, I began to observe, quietly, patiently. Because sometimes the only thing stronger than anger is exhaustion turned into purpose. That's where it all began. The late nights, the humiliation, the collapse, they built something inside me. Not revenge, not yet, but awareness, a spark. Because when you've been worked to the bone, mocked for asking for rest, and treated like a cog in someone else's ego machine, you stop wanting approval. You start wanting justice. And that was the beginning of the end for Mr. Carter. He just didn't know it yet. When he made me work through my dad's funeral, something in me snapped. There's a special kind of exhaustion that goes beyond being tired. The kind that numbs your emotions, blurs your sense of time, and makes you forget what life outside work even feels like. That's where I was. Every day felt like the same copy-pasted nightmare. Fluorescent lights, fake smiles, and Carter's voice echoing through the office like a bad song you couldn't escape. I thought I'd hit rock bottom when I collapsed that night at my desk. Turns out that was just the prelude. Because nothing could have prepared me for what came next. It was a Thursday morning in late March. I remember because Carter had scheduled another mandatory brainstorming session at 7 a.m. sharp. I just walked into the office holding a coffee I didn't even want when my phone buzzed. It was my mom. She never called that early. When I answered, her voice was trembling. "Ethan, your dad collapsed?" I froze in the middle of the hallway. "Collapsed? What do you mean collapsed? They're taking him to St. Mary S. The doctor said, it doesn't look good. You need to come." I didn't even think. I grabbed my bag, turned around, and bolted for the elevator. Just as the doors were closing, I heard that familiar voice. "Ethan, where are you going? The meeting's starting." I turned to see Carter standing there, coffee in hand, annoyance written all over his face. "My dad's in the hospital," I blurted. "He collapsed. I need to go." He frowned like I just told him I was going to skip work for a movie. "Can you check in from there? We've got the Gold Star presentation today." My jaw literally dropped. "Sir, my dad?" He raised a hand. I get it. Family emergency. Just keep your phone nearby, all right?" That was Carter's version of empathy. A reminder that even in crisis, work came first. By the time I reached the hospital, it was already too late. My father was gone. Heart attack. Instant. The doctor said he probably didn't even feel pain, but I did. God, I did. Standing there in that sterile white room, watching my mother fall apart, all I could think was how I wasn't even there. I was at work. Working for a man who would never care. I don't know how long I stayed there. Numb, just staring at the monitor, still showing his heartbeat flatlined. Eventually, my phone buzzed. A text. From Carter. "Need your approval on slide 13 before 9 a.m. Client wants the copy shorter." I just stared at the screen. "No." "Are you okay?" "No. Take your time. Just slide 13. That was the first time I felt real hatred toward him. Not just frustration. Hatred. The kind that sits in your stomach like acid. The next morning, I called HR to request bereavement leave. The policy clearly allowed 3 days. I explained what happened and they were kind, said they'd process it right away. But less than an hour later, I got another call. Carter. "Ethan, HR said you requested leave. Look, I get it. You're going through stuff, but the team's swamped. We can't afford any delays." I could barely speak. "Sir, it's my dad's funeral. I just need a couple of days." He sighed like I was inconveniencing him. "You're one of my best guys, Ethan. But we've got a client review tomorrow and nobody else knows the deck like you do. Work remotely. All right? Show presence." "Presence," he said, like I was a ghost haunting his project. I don't even remember what I said after that. I think I just agreed, because what else could I do? I was too broken to fight. So there I was, the day of my father's funeral, sitting in my childhood home, dressed in black, laptop open, editing a stupid presentation slide while my mother sobbed in the next room. I had one earphone in for the Zoom meeting, one eye on the casket. Carter's voice filled the call. "Ethan, can we make that tagline bolder? The emotion isn't hitting." The irony almost made me laugh. The emotion wasn't hitting. After the funeral, I thought maybe things would calm down. Maybe Carter would at least pretend to show some humanity, but he didn't. If anything, he became more unbearable. He nitpicked everything I did. He'd send messages like, need this now, or recheck your grammar, this is sloppy. It was like he sensed weakness and wanted to crush it. One morning, about a week later, we had a full department meeting. 20 people in the room. Carter was presenting the upcoming quarter's plan when he suddenly paused, looked at me, and said, "Ethan, what's with the typo in the client proposal last night?" Amateur mistake. My heart sank. I'd been careful, but I was exhausted. Still grieving. Maybe I missed something small. I mumbled, "I'm sorry, I'll fix it." But Carter wasn't done. "You've been off your game lately. Personal issues can't interfere with professional life, you know. If you can't handle pressure, maybe this isn't the right place for you." The room went dead silent. Everyone stared at the floor. He just kept going. "You're talented, Ethan, but talent without discipline is useless, so sharpen up." He moved on with the meeting like nothing happened, but I couldn't focus. My ears were ringing. My chest felt tight. I wanted to walk out, scream, throw something, but I just sat there, numb. That was the moment something in me snapped. I didn't say anything. I didn't argue. I just stopped caring. Carter thought he'd humiliated me into submission. But what he'd really done was give me clarity. Grief has a strange way of burning everything unnecessary out of you. After that day, I stopped trying to impress anyone. I didn't fake smiles. I didn't nod along in meetings. I just watched. And I started noticing things, like how Carter always bragged about client retention, but quietly changed numbers in reports before forwarding them to upper management. Or how he told us overtime was unpaid due to company budget, but his own expense reports included client dinners that were actually just him and his friends at steakhouses. Or how he regularly sent after-hours work instructions on Slack, but deleted messages before HR audits. He was careful, but not careful enough, and I was done being his fool. So I started documenting every email, every message, every order to keep working after midnight. Screenshots, backups, timestamps, everything. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but it felt like control, something he'd stolen from me long ago. Word spread quietly through the office. People noticed I'd changed. I wasn't the smiling, eager to please guy anymore. I spoke less, listened more, and it turns out I wasn't the only one who hated Carter. One evening, while staying late, because of course, my coworker Mia came over. She whispered, "You're not alone, you know." I looked up. "What?" She glanced around to make sure no one was near. "You're not the only one he's destroyed. Raj in analytics, he's on antidepressants because of Carter. Lila from PR cried in the restroom last week. Everyone's scared." Her words hit hard. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't weak. This man was breaking people, one by one. That's when I told her what I'd been doing, quietly collecting proof. Her eyes widened. "You're actually keeping records?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "Everything." She looked around again, then whispered, "Send me what you've got. I'll help." That night, I realized something important. Fear may silence individuals, but it bonds the broken. Once I started looking, I couldn't unsee it. The manipulation, the hypocrisy, the fake charm. Carter treated people like chess pieces, moving them, sacrificing them, never caring about the wreckage left behind. And I began to understand his pattern. He'd praise you one day, crush you the next. He'd assign impossible deadlines, then blame you for failing. He'd make jokes about work-life balance, while proudly telling clients, "My team doesn't sleep until results do." He even bragged once, "I make diamonds out of pressure." Yeah, by pulverizing people first. But this time, the pressure wasn't creating diamonds, it was creating a revolt. Mia started sending me her own screenshots, Carter's Slack messages about unpaid weekend work. Raj gave me time logs proving overtime violations. Another coworker forwarded voice recordings of Carter shouting during calls. Piece by piece, I was building a mountain of evidence. And the best part, Carter had no idea. Because to him, I was still the quiet, obedient Ethan, the guy who'd worked through his own father's funeral just to meet a deadline. That's the kind of arrogance that blinds people. One night, about a month after the funeral, I stayed late again by choice this time. The office was empty, lights dimmed, the city glowing faintly outside the windows. I sat there, scrolling through everything I gathered. Emails, files, messages. Over 400 pieces of evidence. Each one a nail for Carter's coffin. As I closed my laptop, I looked at his glass office empty now, but his nameplate still glinting under the dim lights. "Mr. James Carter, Director of Marketing." I whispered to myself, "You made me work through my father's funeral. I'll make sure you never work again." And for the first time in months, I felt calm. Not angry. Not broken. Just focused. That was the night I stopped being his victim and started being his reckoning. You ever get that moment when your grief burns out, and what's left is just this cold, sharp sense of purpose? That was me. After everything Carter did, making me work through my dad's funeral, mocking me in front of everyone, something inside me changed. I wasn't broken anymore. I was calculating. And the best part, Carter had no idea. He thought I was still his obedient little soldier, staying late every night, nodding at every insult and saying, "Yes, sir," like a robot. But while he thought I was working for him, I was actually working on him. I had one mission. Take down Mr. Carter without him realizing who pulled the trigger. I started small. No dramatic gestures. No obvious signs of rebellion. Just quiet observation. Every time he barked an order, I logged it. Every urgent email that came in after midnight, I archived in a secret folder called Judgment Day. Every time he changed the timesheet or said, "We'll compensate later," I noted the date, the exact words, and the witnesses present. The first few weeks were hard. My emotions kept getting in the way. Anger, bitterness, even guilt. But then I realized something. Carter didn't just abuse me, he abused everyone. He had this smug grin whenever he'd walk through the office at 10 p.m., acting like he was leading a team of high performers, when really we were just tired people afraid to lose our jobs. I began talking quietly with some coworkers I trusted: Jenna, who handled design, Marcus, who was in charge of analytics, and Priya, our HR assistant, who secretly hated him. At first, they were hesitant. No one wanted to be the one who talked. Carter had fired 2 people last year for poor performance, but everyone knew the real reason they questioned his methods. So I didn't ask for gossip, I asked for proof. Do you have any emails? I asked Marcus one day, where Carter approved overtime but didn't pay for it. Marcus's eyes darted around before whispering, "Why?" I shrugged. "Just curious. You know how it is. Cover your back." A week later, Marcus dropped a USB drive on my desk without a word. Inside, 3 months worth of emails showing Carter directly ordering people to falsify their time logs. That was my first solid win. The next part of the plan came unexpectedly. During one late night session, I overheard Carter on a phone call in his office yelling at someone in accounting, "Just mark it as client appreciation," he snapped. "I'll take care of the invoice later." That phrase stuck with me. So the next morning, I casually asked Priya, HR assistant, and Loki, my favorite person there, "Hey, do you know what client appreciation means in accounting terms?" She raised an eyebrow. "Depends. Why?" I shrugged again, acting clueless. "Just heard Carter mention it yesterday." She leaned closer. "It's basically a cover-up label for bonuses or expenses that don't have receipts. If Carter's using it often, it's shady." That night, I checked the shared finance folder. Carter was careless. He often left sensitive documents open on the shared drive. Guess what I found? At least 6 client appreciation invoices, all signed by Carter, each worth over $5,000. None of them had receipts. But that wasn't the real kicker. The bonuses were supposed to go to our department team for hitting targets. He had been pocketing them himself. I remember sitting there at 2 a.m., staring at the files, feeling my pulse slow down. This wasn't just exploitation, this was fraud. And I had just uncovered the first thread of his downfall. By this point, Carter's behavior had become unbearable again. Maybe he sensed something was off. Maybe his ego just needed fresh victims. He started micromanaging everyone more aggressively, demanding daily progress summaries, and calling 9 a.m. meetings that lasted until lunch. But this actually worked in my favor, because while he barked orders, I quietly built my network. Jenna started forwarding me screenshots of Slack messages where he threatened to replace lazy staff. Marcus kept collecting unpaid overtime sheets. Priya slipped me copies of internal HR approvals Carter had supposedly forged. One night, while we were both the last ones in the office, Priya said, "You're doing something, aren't you?" I froze. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly. "You're too quiet lately, too calm. You used to flinch when he shouted. Now you just, watch him." I didn't confirm or deny anything, but she nodded anyway. "Good. He deserves whatever's coming." The hardest part of revenge isn't gathering evidence, it's figuring out where to drop it. See, internal HR was mostly under Carter's thumb. The VP of HR was his golf buddy. Reporting him internally would just get me fired faster. So I went higher outside the company. First, I contacted the labor board using an anonymous complaint form. I described the insane work hours, unpaid overtime, and toxic environment, attaching redacted copies of my evidence. Then I went one level higher, a local business journalist named Rachel King. She'd written a viral piece last year about workplace exploitation at a major bank. I sent her a carefully worded email with the subject line: "Potential story, widespread corporate abuse and fraud inside company name." I didn't expect a reply, but 2 days later, I got one. "I'm interested. Let's talk off the record first." When we spoke on an encrypted app, I laid it all out: the overtime logs, the stolen bonuses, the fake approvals. She listened quietly and said, "If what you're saying checks out, this could blow up." She promised to investigate discreetly. I trusted her. The trickiest part of all this, acting normal. While I built Carter's destruction, I still had to show up every day, smile at him, and say, "Morning, sir." I had to laugh at his fake jokes, nod during his pointless rants, and pretend to care when he bragged about running a tight ship. Sometimes I'd sit in meetings watching him talk about teamwork and leadership while my mind whispered, "You have no idea what's coming, do you?" There was this one particular Friday where he pulled me aside. "Ethan," he said, patting my shoulder like some benevolent overlord, "I've noticed your performance lately. You're sharp, consistent. That's why I'm trusting you with the next campaign." I almost laughed. He was giving me more work, the very thing that once destroyed me, thinking I'd see it as a promotion. But this time, I didn't feel resentment. I felt control, because I knew while he buried himself deeper in his lies, I was already digging the hole for his career. After 3 months of planning, the evidence folder was massive. Emails, payroll screenshots, tax discrepancies, testimonies from at least 8 coworkers, all neatly organized, labeled, and cross-referenced. It wasn't just revenge anymore. It was justice executed with precision. I printed everything, saved it to a USB drive, encrypted a copy online, and even mailed a sealed version to myself, just in case I needed a timestamp backup. That night, I sat in my apartment, staring at my computer screen, my finger hovering over the send button. I drafted 2 separate emails, one to the corporate headquarters addressed directly to the CEO, the other to the Labor Commission, complete with evidence attachments. If I hit send, there was no going back. Carter would know. The company might fire me. But honestly, after everything he'd done after making me work through my father's funeral, I didn't care anymore. I took a deep breath. Then I clicked send. The next morning, everything felt strange. The air in the office was thick, like it was holding its breath. Carter was his usual arrogant self, strutting around with his coffee mug, shouting about tight deadlines, but I couldn't stop smirking. Because the dominoes were already falling and he didn't even know it yet. That afternoon, I saw the first sign. Two men in suits walked into the office, flashing ID badges. They weren't clients. They were internal auditors. And just like that, Carter's empire began to crack. I didn't say a word. I just sat at my desk quietly working, while inside I whispered to myself, "You made me work through my father's funeral, Carter. You made me question my worth, my sanity, my life. Now it's your turn to lose everything." And that's when I realized I wasn't his victim anymore. I was his reckoning. You know how people always say karma takes time? Yeah, well, in my case, karma came wearing a suit and carrying a clipboard. It all started with a single email, not even mine this time. I was sipping burnt coffee on a Tuesday morning when our entire office got a notice of internal audit from HR. It was short, cold, and terrifying. Effective immediately, the compliance department will be reviewing all marketing division time logs, budget reports, and expense records from the past fiscal year. Carter read it out loud in disbelief, standing in the middle of the office. His voice cracked just a little, but enough for me to catch it. "What the hell is this?" he muttered, waving the email like it was a personal insult. "No one informed me." Jenna glanced at me across the room, eyes wide. I kept my face neutral, but inside, my pulse was racing. It had begun. Within hours, 3 people from HQ arrived, clipboard-wielding compliance officers who introduced themselves with polite smiles and cold eyes. They asked for Carter's office records, payroll approvals, and project expense sheets. Carter tried his usual power move, that loud, fake confidence. "Oh, this is all standard, right? Just a formality?" One of the auditors looked up and said flatly, "It's not random, sir. It's complaint-based." You could feel the air change. The chatter died instantly. Even the air conditioner sounded louder than normal. Carter forced a smile, but his eyes betrayed him. He was shook. The rest of us went about our work like nothing was happening, but the whispers started. People were talking in hushed voices over Slack. "What's going on? Do you think someone reported him?" About time they did. Meanwhile, I sat there, silently watching him unravel bit by bit. By day 3, the auditors started calling people in for confidential interviews. They'd summon us one by one into the HR conference room and close the door. When it was my turn, I felt my heart pounding, not out of guilt, but from holding back satisfaction. The woman interviewing me looked calm and methodical. She asked basic questions first: my hours, my responsibilities, my overtime. Then she said, "We've noticed several inconsistencies between project delivery dates and reported work hours. Can you explain why your timesheets don't reflect weekend work?" I just looked at her and said, "Because Mr. Carter told us not to record weekend hours. He said the system wouldn't process overtime properly." She paused her pen mid-scribble. "He told you that directly?" "Many times," I replied. "Sometimes in emails too." I handed her a printed thread, one of the very ones I'd saved. She took it like it was gold. "Thank you, Ethan," she said quietly. "That helps a lot." When I left the room, Carter was waiting outside, pretending to chat with someone on the phone, but I saw his eyes flick toward me. He knew. He just didn't know how much I'd done. Over the next week, his behavior went from arrogant to paranoid. He started micromanaging everything, hovering over desks, checking our screens, asking who was talking to HR. He even sent out an all-staff email. "Let's stay unified as a team during this unnecessary audit. If anyone has questions about procedures, please come directly to me." Translation: if you snitch, I'll find out. But the fear he once ruled with, it was gone. People weren't scared anymore. They were angry. After years of abuse, unpaid hours, insults, broken promises, the tide had turned. He'd built his little empire on intimidation, but now no one cared about his threats. I saw Marcus ignore one of his orders for the first time. Jenna openly questioned a deadline. Even Priya, who used to avoid his gaze, started replying to him curtly in emails. Carter wasn't the king anymore. He was just a man watching his throne collapse. Just when things couldn't get worse for him, they did. The following Monday, 2 officials from the Department of Labor showed up unannounced. You should have seen Carter's face when security called to say, "Government inspectors are here to see you." They went straight to HR, asked for employee time logs, pay slips, and contracts. By lunchtime, they were walking around interviewing staff. They even pulled up security camera records to verify work hours. The funniest part, those same cameras that Carter used to monitor us ended up proving that people were working late long after the time log said we'd clocked out. The evidence was undeniable, and I could tell from Carter's body language that he knew the walls were closing in. He started sweating through his suit jackets. He yelled more, snapped at people, threw a file once. The guy who once mocked me for being too emotional was having a full-blown meltdown, and I loved every second of it. About 2 weeks into the audit, Carter called an emergency all-staff meeting. He stormed into the conference room like a man possessed. "Listen up," he barked, slamming a folder on the table. "I know some of you have been talking to HR or worse to outsiders. Let me remind you that leaking internal information violates company policy." No one moved. He scanned the room, waiting for someone to flinch. Nobody did. He glared at me for a full 3 seconds. And that's when Jenna, bless her brave heart, spoke up. "With all due respect," she said, voice steady, "violating labor laws also goes against company policy." You could have heard a pin drop. Carter turned red. "Watch your tone, Jenna," Marcus chimed in. "No, she's right. We're all tired of being scared to speak up. You've been exploiting us for years, and now you're finally getting caught." Carter exploded. "Get out, all of you. You think you can talk to me like that? But nobody moved. Nobody got up. It was the first time I saw him truly realize that he had lost all control. 3 days later, the bomb dropped. Rachel King, the journalist I'd contacted months earlier, published her expose. The headline hit social media like wildfire. Inside the 70-hour sweatshop, the real face of corporate exploitation. The article laid everything bare: screenshots of unpaid overtime, falsified reports, employee testimonies, anonymized of course, even the stolen team bonuses. She didn't name me, but she didn't have to. Everyone at the company knew exactly who started it. By noon, the article was trending on LinkedIn and Twitter. By evening, corporate HQ released a public statement. We have suspended Mr. Carter pending a full investigation. The company does not tolerate unethical or unlawful practices. Suspended. That word alone made my heart race. I didn't celebrate. I just sat quietly at my desk, staring at the email. For the first time in years, the office was peaceful. No shouting, no threats, no fear. Just silence. Sweet, freeing silence. Carter's downfall was fast and brutal. The auditors confirmed everything. Fake timesheets, falsified budgets, missing bonus funds. HR verified that employees were made to work illegal overtime hours without pay. The Labor Department fined the company heavily. And then came the email, the one we'd all been waiting for. Mr. Jonathan Carter has been terminated effective immediately. No explanation, no farewell note. Just gone. But the real ending came a few hours later. I was at my desk when I heard footsteps and low murmurs near the lobby. I looked up and there he was, Carter, being escorted out by 2 security guards. He looked smaller somehow. His usual arrogance was gone. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, his eyes hollow. For a second, he looked like a man who couldn't believe the world had finally caught up to him. As he passed by, our eyes met. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, maybe to accuse me, maybe to plead, but he didn't. He just looked away and walked out, the same way he'd once walked another employee out. Years ago, smirking. Only this time, the smirk was mine. The weeks that followed were surreal. HR sent formal apology letters to all employees. We were compensated for unpaid overtime, back pay, and unused leave. The company brought in a new director, someone empathetic, calm, and actually human. The energy in the office changed overnight. People started laughing again, taking breaks, leaving on time. It was like we'd all been freed from a spell. And as for me, I didn't feel guilty, not even a little. Carter didn't just break rules, he broke people. He destroyed lives, health, and families in the name of productivity. He made me miss my father's funeral. So yeah, when I saw him walk out with security, I didn't feel sorry. I felt peace. For the first time in years, I left the office at 6 p.m. Sunlight still out, and just stood there outside the building, breathing, free. As I watched cars pass by, I couldn't help but smile and whisper, "You made me work 70 hours a week, Carter. Now you've got 70 years to think about it." You know what's funny? When you spend years living in chaos, peace almost feels unnatural. Like, when things finally go right, your brain keeps waiting for something to go wrong. That's how it felt for me after Carter was gone. The office was different. Quiet, but alive. People smiled again, joked again. There was no more shouting, no more urgent emails at midnight, no more fear hanging in the air like smoke. For the first time in years, I could actually hear myself think. And that's when it hit me. I didn't want to be there anymore. The company tried to fix things fast. Corporate wanted to clean its name, so they went full PR mode. They sent, "We value our employees" emails, made HR act like heroes, even put up wellness posters in the hallway. We got retroactive payments for unpaid overtime for me. That was almost 4 months worth of salary. It hit my account one morning like a delayed miracle. I remember staring at the bank notification, heart racing. It wasn't just money, it was proof that everything I endured meant something. They even offered me a promotion. "Ethan," the VP said during a video call, "after what you've done for this department, we'd like you to take over as interim manager. You've proven leadership under difficult circumstances." I wanted to laugh. Leadership? I hadn't done it for that. I'd done it to survive. I looked at her, smiled politely, and said, "I appreciate it, but I think I'm done here." She blinked. "Done?" "Yeah," I said. "I've spent too many nights here. I think it's time I find something that lets me sleep again." She tried to convince me better pay, more control, positive change from the inside. But I knew better. Once a company's soul is stained, no title can wash it clean. On my last day, I came in early not to work, just to walk through the empty office one last time. It was weird seeing it quiet. The flickering ceiling lights, the faint hum of the air conditioner, the coffee stains that never left the counter. I touched my old desk, the one where I'd fallen asleep more times than I could count. The one where I'd once collapsed from exhaustion while Carter's voice echoed, "You can rest when the campaign's done." That memory used to make me angry. Now, it just made me smile, because I did rest, and he was gone. Jenna stopped by my desk later that morning. "You really leaving, huh?" she said, eyes misty but smiling. "Yeah," I said. "Time to start something new." She hugged me tight. "You changed everything for us, Ethan. We'll never forget that." Marcus came over, grinning like a proud brother. "Guess you finally got the last word," I chuckled. "No, Marcus. I just stopped letting him have the first." Even Priya, the quiet one who used to sneak me info during the investigation, slipped me a note before I left. It just said, "Thank you for reminding us we had power." I kept that note, still have it. When I walked out of that building for the last time, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt light. No more timesheets, no more 11 p.m. emails, just air, just peace. I didn't even go straight home. I wandered for hours through parks, coffee shops, aimless streets. I'd forgotten what daylight felt like on my face at 2 p.m. That night, I really slept for the first time in years. No alarms, no stress dreams, just silence. When I woke up the next morning, it was almost noon. And I remember thinking, so this is what freedom tastes like. It tastes like sleep, like peace, like coffee that's not reheated 3 times in a row. For a while, I didn't know what to do next. I freelanced a bit, consulting small companies, helping startups avoid the same toxic systems that broke people like me. Eventually, I realized something. I didn't just want to make money. I wanted to make workplaces better. So I started my own consulting firm, Tiny. Just me at first. My goal was simple: help employees and small business owners build ethical, transparent systems that protected both sides. No exploitation, no fake deadlines, no hustle culture. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about rebuilding what people like Carter had destroyed: trust. Within months, clients came in, not the big corporations they didn't want to hear about balance, but small companies, passionate teams, nonprofits. They listened. They paid fairly, treated people well, and respected time. And every time I saw one of them thrive, I felt a little piece of myself heal. About a year later, I was at a coffee shop near my apartment, my favorite one, where I usually worked from my laptop, when I overheard a conversation at the next table. 2 guys were talking about marketing agencies. One said, "Hey, remember that guy, Carter from Vector Media? Heard he's working at a small firm downtown now. Apparently under a manager half his age." The other guy laughed. "No way. That guy used to act like he ran the world." I sat there, stirring my coffee, hiding a grin. Guess karma wasn't done yet. I didn't hate him, not anymore. But I won't lie, knowing he had to answer to someone younger, probably getting lectured about team morale, felt poetic. I whispered to myself, guess he finally learned what 70 hours really feels like. Every now and then, I still get messages from old coworkers. Some stayed at the company after the new management took over. They tell me it's actually a decent place now. Flexible hours, fair pay, mental health days. Others left, inspired by what happened, to start their own paths. One message from Jenna stuck with me. "Ethan, I used to think you were crazy for fighting him. But now, I get it. You didn't just save us, you taught us how to fight for ourselves." I sat reading that message for a long time, maybe because it reminded me of why I'd done all of it. It was never about revenge. Not really. It was about reclaiming my dignity and everyone else's too. Sometimes I still dream about that office, not the chaos, but the quiet moments. The late nights with the hum of computers, the smell of stale coffee, the faint city lights through the blinds. Except in those dreams, Carter isn't there. It's just me, shutting off the lights, locking the door, walking away. And when I wake up, sunlight spills through my window. It's 10 a.m. on a weekday, and I'm sitting in my home office wearing sweatpants, sipping coffee, answering client emails, the ones I actually enjoy reading. I lean back in my chair, look at the clock, and smile, because this is my life now, and I earned it. I grab my laptop and open Reddit. Yeah, the same place that got me through sleepless nights when I thought I was the only one dealing with toxic bosses. And I start typing. Title: "My boss made me work 70 hours, so I got him reported." Posted by You Ethical Ethan. Hey, Reddit. This happened a while ago, but I wanted to share the story of how my boss nearly broke me and how I got my life back. It's not a sob story. It's a reminder that your limits matter, that your time matters, and that sometimes revenge isn't about getting even, it's about getting free. I type, pause, sip my coffee, and smile. Because for once, I'm not writing out of frustration. I'm writing out of peace. And as I hit post, I whispered to myself, not bitter, not angry, just calm. When I finally slept, it wasn't just rest, it was freedom. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the story. We have so many more amazing stories coming your way, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. Our goal is to reach 100K subscribers by the end of this year, and we'd love for you to be part of this journey. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.